So you have found your way to the best session of the LES conference, if I may say so. We like to do this every year. We showcase stories of actual projects happening in actual communities and learn a little bit about what's going on in the field. We always try to pick projects that are a little bit different, a little bit new, a little bit something we hope folks will learn from. So I hope you enjoy the slate today. We will have 4 local storytellers. They're all up here, tell you a little bit about what they're up to. We'll have some time for questions, and then at the very end, I will make sure we are all very familiar with Elective Pay or Direct Pay, which is the new sort of game-changing funding source for local projects and in municipalities and nonprofits in particular. And with that, let me give you a sense of who's here. So we have Dave here from Exeter. And we have Dori from Peterborough, and we have Zeke and Paul from Kensington and Walpole. They will tell you a little bit more about themselves and their role in their project and their community. But before I hand over the mic, I'd love to know who you are. So if you are on a town energy committee, throw up a hand. Wonderful. If you're an elected official of some kind, no select board members, so this is a safe space, everyone. Industry folks in the clean energy industry. Okay, a few of those. And then finally, how many of you would consider yourselves a resource to folks trying to do projects at the local level? Amazing. So I see a lot of folks from my team here. Briefly, who are you? I'm going to ask my resources to introduce themselves briefly because my faces and names help.
I did raise my hand. I think so. My name's Eric Sandberg. I'm with New Hampshire Electric Co-op.
Yes, NH Saves in the Co-op. Who else raised their hand as a resource? Jude.
Yeah, my name is Jude Nuru. I work for Vision Energy, and I also serve on the City of Keene Climate and Energy Committee. So I help local communities to, access clean energy. So I'm a resource.
Did you raise your hand as well? I thought so.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Krista Daniels, and I work for Antioch University, and I work on community resilience and climate preparedness.
Anybody else who considers themselves a resource? Up front here? Who was it? Aha.
My name is Rachel Rinelli, and I am the program manager for the Monadnock Sustainability Hub.
We love our Monadnock Sustainability Hub. Okay, so thank you. That's really helpful. I don't know how much I explained who I am. My name is Sarah Brock. I run the Energy Circuit Rider team at Clean Energy New Hampshire. We have all of our municipal energy circuit riders here in the room, Katrin on the Seacoast, Melissa from the North Country, Frank in the Monadnock region, and Doug from Sullivan County. We are expanding our team as grant funds allow, but we provide free technical assistance to municipalities who are trying to get energy projects done. If you're not familiar with us, come talk to me. I'd love to help you out. And yes, we are awesome. So I am going to start with Zeke, who's going to talk to us about solar on a historic building in Kensington, which any of you who have historic downtowns will know can be a little daunting. So, Zeke.
Thank you. Hello, can I have the... All right, so hello, everyone. My name is Zeke Schmois. I am the chair of the Energy Committee in Kensington, newly established Energy Committee as of last year. And I'm here to talk to you about a municipal solar project that we actually worked on over the summer and submitted as part of the DOE grant that some of you towns might have also submitted to. And this is specifically a 60 kilowatts, less than 60 kilowatt array that we set up to put on a 300-year-old building or town hall. So for those of you that don't know, the New Hampshire DOE Solar Grant Program that launched over the summer had just the high-level requirements that we were given was that we could only do up to 60 kilowatts of DC. It had to be on a town-owned building or plot of land. And we were only given 8 weeks to do this, right? So it was announced like June, and we were told we had to submit the entire thing by the end of August. So first step, right? Like every time you start a solar project, first thing you do, you want to find the right site for it. For us, after doing some extensive research, what we found was that our town hall building was the best location. Our town is very small. We only have like 4 municipal buildings, and this was the only one that didn't have shading, so it wasn't that hard to find. We don't have many plots of land that were viable either. So we decided on that. And some of the good reasons to select it, even beyond the fact that we had not many to choose from, was it had good sun exposure and almost no shading, which, of course, very good. Transformer right out on the street, very large to be able to accommodate our system. This is important for any of you that get really deep into the technical details of a solar project. You want to make sure that you don't go over the rated capacity, otherwise the utility company makes you pay for an upgrade. So that helped our application quite a bit. And it had fairly large energy use thanks to the police station being down in the basement. They have a lot of use, electric use. Now, some of the issues. The building is listed in the historic registry. And when we went to our select board, they said, well, this is fine as long as you get the Heritage Commission's seal of approval. So we went to them, and they said, absolutely not. Unanimously, they met, and they said, you are not touching our roof. We will not approve this project. All right, so what did we do at that point? Well, we didn't give up, right? We tried to figure out why and why they didn't want the system, and maybe we could work something out with them to get past their needs. So the big question that we had for them was, well, why are you against this project, right? And it turns out that it wasn't necessarily that they were against it for political reasons or for any of the big reasons that sometimes we hear, like aesthetics. It was actually because they were used to hearing solar projects be pitched in a specific way, usually from this is the most optimal way that we can set up this solar these solar panels, not this is the most historic way that we can do it. And so some of the things we heard were, well, they're big and ugly, and they've got white trim around them, so they're going to be very visible from the road. They're going to permanently destroy the roof, which is a 300-year-old roof with these beautiful beams on the inside. And, of course, they asked us, well, why don't you just put them on the ground, right? And so going through each one of these, so this is more or less what they were thinking we were going to install, right? And, of course, you think beautiful town hall building, now you've got these things. We sort of understood. But the reality was that we showed them, no, right? We don't have to install these white panels. We will work with the solar installer to find all black panels. We will put them low to the ground, to the roof, as low as we can so that they're kind of flush. And we even found an installer willing to put black trim guards, which sometimes are called critter guards, but these aren't exactly that. They're more for aesthetic purposes. And what we ended up doing was actually creating, and I may have a picture later, the solar panels are essentially invisible from the ground because it's a black roof, black panels, black trim, 3-inch flush mounted. So they were very pleased when we said that, and that the room sort of changed when we said that the first time. So that was our first big hurdle passed. Permanently destroy the roof. That was another misconception, right? You don't destroy your roof when you put solar panels. You do have to attach the racks to that to your roof, but it's sort of like attaching an antenna. There are screws that go into the beams. They're removable. Again, when we told them they're removable, they were like, oh, okay, well, that was another big thing that we didn't know, and they felt a lot better about it. And then the final one, why not put them on the ground? We showed them all of the different places we could put them. It just made sense to put them there, right? And so what happened in the end was they seemed really excited to do this project, which was a surprise to us because we thought they were against it. And it turns out it was really just those concerns that they had. And once we told them, they changed their minds. So the advice that I always have is just talk, right? Talking seems trivial, but or obvious, but it's sometimes not. Sometimes you just stop the conversation when you shouldn't. Show them that you're installing, that you're interested in installing a system that they want, right? Like a lot of times, yes, you're going to get turnkey projects from your solar companies, but just talk about options, right? Like, hey, have you worked on a historic project? Could you add this or that or that? Make it look as invisible as possible. The answer is usually yes, because they want to sell a system, right? So, of course, they'll try to accommodate. Correct any outdated information. This was a big one, right? A lot of people that aren't in this business don't actually know what new solar panel systems look like. They're a lot more aesthetically pleasing today than they were even 5 years ago. And the final one that I want to leave with is actually something that they brought up, which is super interesting. So what they told us was that now that they were in favor of the solar panel system, they wanted to start a partnership and even put out a news article talking about how they were very in favor of us doing this because they want to ensure that any future projects in town on historic buildings, be it town or residential, go through this process, right? Because they understand the reality that people will put solar panels on their homes, even if it's a historic home. They don't have a say in the ultimate yes or no. And so now that we are moving forward together, what the hope is that people will come to us and we will explain, like, no, you can put these panels, talk to this company who we know will work with you, and so forth. I think that's it. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm just going to set Dave up here, and I'll let you riff while I do that.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I need some guidance here. Otherwise, I'd talk for like an hour but on this project. But I'm here to talk about a large solar array that I constructed at the closed landfill in Exeter. And I was the project manager. Basically, I was pretty much the only one on this project. I kind of brought the idea up, issued the RFP, and went from there. I gotta keep me on track here. Whoop. Oh, hold on. Okay. So what happened? We constructed it's actually 1.78 megawatt. Long story. This is a complicated project with a lot of detail, but I'm just going to kind of gloss over it and I'll get into specifics if anyone has any questions. But it actually ended up being a 1.78 megawatt project because by the time we got it, we first got approval for it, COVID hit. And then everything shut down and the price rocketed by 30%, and the project was dead. And then we went back when the IRA came out and the ITC kind of saved the project and made the numbers work again with the 30% investment tax credit. So we got back, and in that time, solar panels continually to get more and more efficient. So you can get more wattage, kilowatt produced out of the same size panels. So hopefully someday, what?
I'm realizing before I let Dave ramble, I should explain the reason why this is so cool, so have this in the back of your mind, is because no one has done what Exeter has done. It is very rare to own a large solar system. Most towns choose to lease it or use a power purchase agreement. It is kind of out of the box that a town has figured out how to just own it outright. There's a lot of benefit to that, but it's hard. So this is cool that you're listening to this.
All right, well, there goes my second slide. So, now what? Thank you. So it's pretty unique. It's on a stone, some specifics. It's on a stone ballast system. So it's like these just rock cages that sit on top of the landfill because you can't penetrate the soil. So they just sit on this ballast system, and then it's all interconnected. The electrical just runs about a foot off the ground on these, these channels. So it's pretty cool. And like she said, it is the largest municipal-owned solar array in New Hampshire, I believe. Like, you have bigger ones in, like, Manchester. I think Bow has one. But I contacted them, and their PPAs, like power purchase agreements with land leases. But we purchased it outright. We bought it. We had Revision Energy install it, and we're going to own it. And right now it is 99% complete. There's only like a day left for Unitil and Revision, but unfortunately we're waiting on parts that are still a year out. So be forewarned if you get into anything electrical, transformers, meters, reclosures, switchgear, it's all like, 12 to 36 months back, even now. So let's see. I can't. What is this? Oh, okay. I got it. So how it happened? I started exploring in 2018. There was some hesitancy on folks' part at first, but I just issued an RFP. It doesn't cost you any money to issue an RFP for a solar array, and I put in the RFP. I'm open for ideas. Give me anything. not necessarily looking for a land lease or a PPA. Like that's been done. Has anyone got any other ideas? So Revision Energy was one of the two proposals we got back, and one was a turnkey option, that we purchase it and we basically own and develop, and the other was this kind of the method most people use with leasing the land in a power purchase agreement. And when I first looked at it, it's like, the land lease and the power purchase agreement is kind of steady. That's the consistent way. We're going to, you can just say we're going to get $2,500 a month for the life for 20 years, and, just do the math, and then we're going to pay this for the power, and we're going to make money. We're going to make X at the end of it. But then I started looking at it a little more carefully, and I think I came to the conclusion that owning it turnkey was probably less risk than the PPA, than the land lease. Because you're stuck in a land lease and you can't get out of it, and there's all sorts of things of dealing with another person that can happen contractually, obligations on, especially on a landfill. But also the power purchase agreement is usually based on an escalator. You're paying 2.5% more every year. So it's great if the market goes up 4% a year for the next 20 years. But if it doesn't, if it has lulls and it flattens out for a while and then it comes back, you can end up losing money and paying more. And I've actually talked to some people who are in that same boat here. So when you purchase it outright, the risk is, it's almost. It's tough because even we had the risk that we assumed was we had a private third party do a pro forma for us, because Revision did one, and Revision's great, but they have the rose-colored glasses on, and you're going to make $20 million at year 40. But we're like, well, we need a second opinion, and we got someone who actually did a pro forma for us, and they said electricity prices are going to drop, and are going to stay low, and are not going to come back up until today's price until 2038. So they think electricity is going to go like this and not come back to what today, and it still made about $2 million revenue for the town at year 20 when the bond was paid off. So even if electricity prices go down, this should be cash flow positive from day one. So the lessons learned, if I were to give some on this, I think you need to enlighten people about if you're doing a project like this, definitely look at the turnkey, look at that option, because a lot of people get scared like, I'm not going to bring a $5 million warrant article to my voters. They have to understand the details, because to me, it's a much more attractive proposition for a turnkey. And just ask people, like, if developers are going to come in and spend $5 million to build a solar array, it's got to be worth it. They're savvy. They're in it to make money. So why don't you replace them and you take that profit? There's not a lot of risk, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, our energy committee and so forth, if it does flatline and say it breaks even, well, we've created 1.77 megawatts of renewable energy every year that offsets 92% of our municipal use in town. So that in and of itself is a benefit, beyond the monetary. Also, if you do this, the long lead times I said earlier, we made the mistake of waiting until we got the permits to order the equipment that we knew we needed, and we thought it was a good idea at first, because we're like, what if it doesn't get permitted? What if we don't get the permit? Then we have $400,000 worth of switchgear and meters that we don't need. And then I'm going to be responsible for that. So I kind of took the easy way out. I think working with the DES and now knowing their process, it's going to get permitted. It might take a couple of revisions back and forth, but you're going to get permitted. So if you don't want to wait 2-3 years to get the final pieces of equipment in, I would make the case to, purchase the items, the long lead items, as soon as you spec them out. So I think is that? Oh, yeah, 7:52. That's all set? Yeah. I'll be happy to answer any questions after. Thank you.
Great, even though I stole his thunder. Sorry. So now I'm going to hand it over to Paul, who's going to talk a bit about electric vehicle charging. Yeah. electric vehicle charging in Walpole, another example of a town that's owning this infrastructure and sort of dealing with what that means.
Thank you. I'm going to stay seated if that's okay. Yeah. Click. There we go. Look at that. So this is Walpole, New Hampshire, not Walpole, Mass. And we have more cows than we have people, just so people know. And I'm filling in for somebody who was actually intimately involved in this project. I'm on the Energy Committee for Walpole, and I was involved in a couple of other projects. One of them was to put up a solar array at our recycling center, and we can talk about that for a second if you want. But this is about our EVs. So the Walpole has a foundation, and the foundation is a nonprofit organization. They own about 10 buildings in our town. They renovate them. They maintain them. They pay taxes on them, even though they don't have to. They rent them out to people to rent or businesses to rent. And these are pretty much some of the most historic buildings in our town, which is pretty cool. But one of the places in town was a toxic waste site. And it was a chrome plating organization or business. And the Walpole Foundation took over their property. And they applied for a Superfund grant to clean it up. And they cleaned it up, and they found that at the end of that, the best thing that they could do to protect it was to cover it with asphalt, which makes a nice parking lot. So they did, and they spent $30,000 to put in some EV chargers on this property. There's 2 of them, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. I covered anything? Oh, and then after they did that, they donated the chargers to the town. So they're a nice group. And 2 weeks ago, I didn't know any of this. So these are the chargers, and it just so happened the day that I stopped to take the picture, people were using one of them. They couldn't use the other one because it's broken. But I was very surprised to see 2 cars from Vermont using them. So they are, originally they contracted with a company called SemaConnect, and SemaConnect was eventually purchased by Blink. They are level 2 chargers, and they have a J1722 connectors. I tried it with my wife's electric vehicle, and they worked just fine. I was only connected for about 8 minutes, and it cost me 38 cents, so it wasn't too bad. The utility is Liberty. The energy source is CPCNH because we use CPCNH. And the town gets to set the rate. And in this case, they were convinced that setting the rate by hour as opposed to by how much you load your vehicle was a recommended approach, and they came up with $1.50. And of that, Blink takes about 8%, and the rest comes to the town. And, of course, the town has to pay Liberty, it's 17 cents per kilowatt for the electricity. Oh, and the maintenance of these are about $900 a year for all 4, which is due on November 6th, and they are going to pay it because they got to replace one. They also added some lighting for security. So the chargers are not well used. And I think, after using it myself and doing a little research, at 5,000 watts, it's not giving people enough of a jolt to get it used. And looking at this, I found that the chargers themselves appear that they can go up to about 11,000 watts, but they're currently set, I think, with 30 amp breakers, and it reduces the amount per. So it reduces that, and I think if we can make some adjustments, that might help. The town doesn't think that these things are going to pay for themselves at the moment, and they're concerned about that. And the Walpole Community Power Committee, which I'm part of, is thinking about getting involved to try to resolve some of the issues with use, doing some signage, maybe increasing the amount that they do and they can support, and maybe getting it out to the town that they're there, that when people come to visit them with their EVs, they can always zip down and charge up. They're behind a bank, at the back of the bank parking lot. But if we had some signs on it, you can find them through Google, but Google only gets you pretty close. You'd have to know the town to actually find it behind the bank in the back corner of the parking lot. Not sure.
I was asking if it's on PlugShare, which is like the main app that EV users use to find.
Why don't you check while I'm talking? So one of the things that I asked them when I got involved was, did you apply for any funding for this? And they had not, and they kind of looked at me like, well, what kind of funding? And so I think one of the questions I have is, does anybody know if these are something that they can get? I assume that they could get some of that $30,000 back from the IRA. But what do you think? Let's take a vote. I say. They were installed at the end of 23. Okay. Anyway, that's kind of all I have for you.
They are? Okay.
We've confirmed they are on PlugShare. So if you go to Walpole, look it up on PlugShare. And then finally, we're going to hear from Dori Drachman, who's doing something not related to municipal infrastructure, but still very exciting. Take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's see. Click forward. There we are. Okay, so yes, my name is Dori Drachman, and I am speaking to you today as the board chair of the Monadnock Sustainability Hub. And as the intro slide at the beginning said, this is a pilot project of our new home energy coaching program. As a pilot project, it is extremely new. We launched last Saturday. And so not a ton of lessons learned yet, but there are some lessons learned for getting it up and running. Okay. So just a moment about the hub. The hub is the Monadnock region's catalyst for climate solutions. We work with all takers, local, state, individuals, to help all the residents in the Monadnock region switch to 100% renewable. We've done lots of projects over our 6 years, including having the first fast charger in the region at the Monadnock Food Co-op, the result of a founding board member, but also a founding energy circuit rider. John Condos was the legs behind that one. We've had a couple of Monadnock Clean Energy Fairs, several Drive Electric Expos. We did a Solarized Monadnock campaign in 5 towns and have a community solar array for farmers. So those are some of the projects that we've been doing, and we are very excited to launch this most recent campaign on home energy coaching. So what is an energy coach? Basically, it's a neighbor that's willing to share their expertise on their experience of getting an energy upgrade with other neighbors. Most of them have had work done on their home or bought an EV. Some of them have had some coach training through Rewiring America. If you are not familiar with them, I definitely recommend getting familiar with them. They are an excellent resource. Rewiringamerica.org. They have a great incentive calculator, and it's a really comprehensive way to understand how the Inflation Reduction Act incentives will work for the individual. And they also help, frame this kind of coaching into what projects you can be doing on your home. So some of us have had that energy coach training. And then we have a few folks that we keep in our back pocket that are actually either mostly retired professionals in the field, so that if you've got a hard heat pump project that is, forced hot water that doesn't work well, we bring in Doug Waite and say, yeah, can you go see them? And he always says yes. So that's really what an energy coach is, that it doesn't have to be someone with a lot of technical expertise. We have found that just having conversations of, I got heat pumps, and I found that it was really helpful to do X, Y, or Z, or I use this company instead of that company, and people are like, oh, thank you. So it can be very simple. So the topics that we like to cover, so there are our overarching goals are to help people electrify their home, their whole household. And so we love to be able to talk about that overarching plan, and then also to be able to tell people about the resources, the incentives that are available to do all of that. But we also are very happy to help people if they have a very specific question about, I want a heat pump water heater. Okay, we can set you up with somebody who's had a heat pump water heater, or who has some more technical knowledge about it. So those are the topics that we generally talk about: weatherization, heat pumps, solar, batteries, and EVs, in addition to the more comprehensive topics. So why did we come up with this project, or how? So it started actually in Peterborough, so I wear a couple of hats. I also, in addition to working with the hub, I also work with a local organization called PREP, the Peterborough Renewable Energy Project, and we got a large grant from the Department of Energy, the U.S. Department of Energy, that is going to be providing incentives for our residents and the residents of Harrisville to do much of the same kind of work that the IRA does. And as we got into it more and more, we're like, oh my God, this is confusing. How are people going to do this? And at the time, we were working with an experienced energy technology company called Block Power, and they were saying, yes, in our experience, it can be very difficult to give away money, and it's because it's complicated. And so we realized that we really needed to make it simpler, because electrification is really hard. Even though it seems like a simple concept, there are lots of ways that it makes that it just is difficult, and some of them are that the technologies are wonky. And so understanding why would you want to get a heat pump versus an oil heater? Because you can move, instead of generating heat, you're just moving heat. And so it's very confusing for the layperson. And the rules for these incentives are just kind of Byzantine. And so having somebody hold your hand as you're going through this, we felt like it was going to be a game changer, or else people won't take those incentives. They don't take things that they don't understand. So a lot of people really needed a one-on-one conversation or series of conversations to be able to understand them and therefore feel comfortable moving forward with it. So that is why we did it. There's a couple other things that I wanted to make sure I got into here. Yes. So even though we are in the pilot phase and we are really just beginning and so don't have a lot of advice yet, one piece that has become very clear is that there is a technology piece of this project, this program. We are getting requests for coaching through a Google form, and we are we're recruiting coaches through Google Forms. We are doing follow-ups through forms, and then we needed a matching system. And so all of that requires some technology. We are fortunate that there's a person in prep who is a former IT specialist, and so he has set it up enough. It's kind of like the beta version of it all. I know one piece of advice. Do not do your pilot program just before your IT specialist is going away for 3 weeks. Not a great idea, but here we are. So to know that, but also know that coaching is kind of catching on across the country, I think a lot because of the trainings that Rewiring America is doing. Did I mention that they are actually doing these trainings, that four sessions, totally free, and give you really good information. So as a result of that, there are folks that are trying to develop software that can do some of this matching and take that piece off of the local groups. So that is just something to know. And then it's just some contact information. You can contact the Hub, and specifically the coaching program through hubenergycoaching@gmail.com. And you can go to our website to see more about how we frame it there. And if you're in the Monadnock region at some point, after we move out of just Peterborough, you can request a coach there. And if you want to have more conversations with me, or I'm going to point you out, Patsy Beffanagrini from Nelson. She is also a coach. And are there any other coaches in this room? Yes, and I just was introduced. What's your name again? Bill Coder, who lives in Bedford. So he's not part of this program. But if you're in the Bedford area, talk to Bill. And I also have, I can give you my personal contact information as well. So thank you.
So we have some time for question and discussion before I pull us back and do a little direct pay primer. So who's got a question for any of our panelists?
Thank you. Dori, how do folks find out that this coaching program exists?
That's a good question. I think through Rewiring America we found out about it. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, pull it off.
Now can you hear me? Okay. So I think that's how we found out about it. I honestly don't totally remember, but I'm pretty sure because we were using the Rewiring America website for looking at how the incentives were going to get structured, so we were on there a lot. And as part of that, we found out that there were, going through some of their web pages, we found out about the coaching program.
Are you asking how folks in Peterborough will find out about their coaching?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. So what we did, so PrEP has been around for a while, and we've got a 300 or so person email list. We actually started it out with an event that we did a lot of publicity for. We had a coaching panel last Saturday, who each person talked about their experience with their little niche. And then we kind of spread out so people could have little coaching sessions. And so some people found out that way. We are going to be, as it becomes more regional, the hub will be certainly putting out the word through its email list. What we want to do, though, is also work in individual towns so that there can be their own little coaching program. And one of the things that Peterborough has found, and we haven't done it yet with the coaching program, but doing direct mail postcards are extremely effective to every household. And they do cost some money, so it's good to have some kind of fundraising ability. For us, we're a town of 6,500. To do a postcard to every residence, it costs $1,000. But it is incredibly helpful. A lot of small towns have newsletters, and so putting it out in that format, in your paper. So kind of the normal way that people find out. But the other thing that also will be happening, or at least what we predict, is the more we do coaching, the more people will be saying, I just got this coaching, and it was awesome. And so now I can move forward with this project. And so we're thinking that there will be a fair amount of word of mouth.
Hope so. Other questions?
Thank you. I'm Bill Vecchio from the mighty town of Twin Mountain in northern New Hampshire, as they say, the North Country. We started an energy commission about a year ago, and we focused more on the municipal projects in town, but now we want to refocus on residential. And you may have said it already, how do you reach out to the individuals in the town? Do you do it in a public forum, all are invited, or do you do it by an individual basis, or how does that work?
So it takes some time to build up that trust in that infrastructure. We didn't start here. We started back with Solarize Monadnock, and then we did a warrant article to get folks to vote for a 100% renewable commitment, and we built over time, and that's why we now have an over 300-person mailing list. So I would say it'll probably take some time, and it's kind of an all of the above kind of strategy. I would just do all of it. Do it, and as much as you can do without paying, great. But if you can get some funding to do a little bit of like publicity in the area, that would also be very helpful. I think there's no magic bullet. It's press releases, postcards, events, all kinds of things. You know where your folks go to either gather, or I know one of the things that is very effective in Peterborough is our recycling center. Tons of people go there. We get a table there. They're all from Peterborough. We know that. And so we know that that's a really effective place for us to table. But other towns will find other venues.
Yes, I definitely have a follow-up. So we are not as blessed with any amount of money. And even if we did, our select board is never really in favor of us doing this much outreach. I'm glad they're not against the energy committee, but what I was going to say is a little unconventional, but the way that we've reached the most people in our town is Facebook. People use the Facebook, and also against our select board, they are not happy with us using Facebook for this. But usually the Facebook pages are kind of heated, and it's people just complaining about their neighbors being loud. But we use it to do that. We actually coach. We don't formalize it, but we do all of that just informally. People have a lot of questions. Sometimes we will say something a little bit spicy just to get people. But that might just be getting into social engineering. But still, it actually is very effective. Especially younger people, single families, they tend to go online and try to get information that way. YouTube video. Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we did run a coaching thing where what we did is we grabbed the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and we went through the 5 big bullets that you had there about EVs, batteries. So we went through each one of those and we made a presentation, very short. Yeah, we did one for each, and we said, this is what they are. This is how much money you can get from the government for free. And this is why you should get it. And it was like a 5-minute video, and then we posted it on Facebook and tried to get everybody to see it. That's another great way to just be proactive about it, because that's what people just don't want to think about this if they don't have to. But if you tell them, hey, put in a hybrid hot water heater, it's basically free, right? You get enough rebates, especially next year with the state rebates going up to $1,750. It's going to be free. It's going to be like $4,000 back after taxes, and it costs $2,000. So.
I think we're learning that this could be an entirely separate session, and in fact, I think it should be. I will just mention that the New Hampshire Network. Anyone here involved with the New Hampshire Network? Yeah, great. They have started hosting a monthly call for energy committees. It's the third Thursday at 3 p.m. If you don't know about this, please come find me. In fact, if you're not sure that you're on my mailing list where I remind people to come to that thing, please give me your email. My team has been going to those, and we have been having really good dynamic conversations, just energy committee to energy committee, about things we're curious about. I just put this on our list to talk about public outreach. And the other thing that Zeke mentioned, but I want to make sure you're all aware of, the state will be coming out with significant new rebates through the home electrification and appliance rebate program and the home efficiency rebate program. This is federal money that is flowing through the state of New Hampshire. They're finalizing their plans now. And it's, in particular, for example, it's going to help low and moderate income residents install heat pumps, for example, get electric appliances, do more with weatherization. And you, as energy committees and folks in your towns, probably do have a significant role to play to make sure that information about those programs gets to the people who can use them, and there will likely need to be some hand-holding to help folks get to the end with lower bills. So there's my plug right over here.
I have a question on the Exeter project, because our town's looking at a project that will probably be substantially smaller, but it's also a capped landfill. So the ongoing maintenance aspect of it, is the town planning to do that directly, or is there like a maintenance agreement that you're entering into?
There will be a maintenance agreement. We factored that into the pro forma. It's basically, one's mowing. I think we're going to break it up into two. One is mowing that's going to have to be done a couple times a year. But their revision offers maintenance programs of different levels, and they monitor them now, via the internet and so forth, and they come out and fix anything that's wrong. So we intend to do that. We bake that into our pro forma, so we expect to pay for that. Oh, and then wait a minute. I was asked by Clean Energy to make a plug, which I forgot to Exeter. Also, we also have electric robot mowers for all our parks and fields in town, and they're awesome. They're great. They work fantastic. They go out in the rain, at night, whatever, and you can time them so, when no one's out there, in the middle of the night they go, and they're silent, you can't hear them, and then they go back into their little power cradle and sit there until they need to go out again, and they go out. I mean, you don't have to plug them in. You really don't have to do anything. And you can, use, you can deploy them on your cell phone. So yes. You're welcome.
Katrin really loves those robot mowers.
The brand I don't know. I was just it's not. That's the rec department that did that. So yeah, you're welcome. But contact them.
All right, thank you. My name is Jude Nuru. Today I'm representing the city of Keene. I'm a member of the Energy and Climate Committee, but I also work for Revision Energy. I'm the lead for the LMI Solar in the state of New Hampshire. So my question goes to Dave. In my role, I have seen towns where projects as small as 100 kW were voted against at the town meeting. Even some of the scenarios, the town wasn't going to buy them and own them outright. In this case, you have a big project, and you were able to navigate all those challenges. Can you share with us exactly what you did to be able to scale some of the challenges we see with towns, especially a project as big as this, and is being owned by the town and was not voted against?
Yeah, I think it boils down to trust and establishing trust between whoever's proposing it and the decision makers. So, like, when I went into Exeter, I've been in this business a long time. I didn't come in with guns blazing. You do things, and you're successful, and you follow through, and you implement. You don't just study it. You take the recommendations, and you do them all. And then you say, hey, those 15 recommendations from that study last year, I did them all. So after a while, they get to, there's a level of trust, and then you bore them with the truth and the facts. So like what the numbers look like, and and so forth, and then sometimes there's a lot of doubters. I'm big on third party. You get a third party review, like an unbiased, because Revision Energy, which did a great job, loved working with you guys, but when they put a pro forma together, obviously, it can be seen as like, okay, they're the ones that are selling it and also telling you what it's going to make, So there's that mistrust, whether it's misguided or not. So go out and get a third party who just does pro formas and doesn't sell solar or develop solar. So those kind of things, that's what I used. And just, telling the truth. I mean, with a landfill, it's a liability. A landfill is a liability. Look at the numbers, look at the specifics, look at what costs you every year, and then you're going to take a liability and turn it into an asset. So it's a long-term liability that can be a long-term asset. So I guess let's just make the argument with the facts.
Get Dave to come be your cheerleader. Yes.
Hi. Follow-up question, Dave. I'm somewhat ignorant about how local government works. At what point was this put to a vote? Would this have happened without a vote? Do the residents of Exeter have a say in how the money is spent in renewables versus status quo of how things have always been? I know I email my alderman, I live in Nashua, about a lot of things that I care about that nobody else in Nashua seems to care about. But, and the aldermen seem to vote for what they think the masses want, or maybe some of them vote for what they want instead. Yep. But that's how I understand budgeting and projects happen. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's basically you're very different in Nashua because I'm in a town. New Hampshire towns and cities are like almost opposite each other. Like they're so different. I worked in a city and I worked in a town. I mean, I would pick a city any day. But they both ultimately end up in the voter. The voter has to approve the funding. A town, it's a little more difficult because they have budget review committees and select board, and they go through all these, and then you go to the voters. Where in a city, the voters adopt the people who make those type of decisions. So you just can get in a room with a subcommittee of 3 in a city, convince them that it's a good idea. They take it to 9 people. You get 5 votes, you get it done. A town's not like that. Town's much more. It's got to be much more methodical, a lot more people to convince, and a lot more to build up. So I guess it depends on where you are. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wonder, how hard was it for you to get a project like this through?
Just kept doing it, I guess. I don't know. It didn't seem that, I mean, things got easier as you get older and you learn and experience. Know how to convince people, and people trust you. People trust you and you do your job, so it's like it's easier, so. Yeah, a lot of them have reached out to me. I'm speaking in an energy committee next week because a lot of them are looking to do the same exact thing, and it's really exciting. So. Yeah.
And thank you for being willing to do that consulting. That's great. Talk to me after. I've got a good resource for you on.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Really interesting stuff here. So I got an EV about a year ago, and it's interesting. You think a lot more about electrification when you're actually trying to do it. Level 3 chargers right off the highway are great, and level 2 chargers somewhere where I can hang out for a couple hours are great. I was on my way to Maine a couple days ago, and the Walmart in Scarborough that has 4 chargers was all shut down. They're upgrading it, and I was low on charge. So I checked what was available, and there was something level 2 in Freeport. which is just a little bit further up the road. I could get there, but I had to stay there for a couple hours. So I stopped at the pizza place and had a slice. And then I walked around and there was a LL Bean outlet and I spent $200. The level 2 chargers in Freeport were free, but they drew me in and I spent way more than I would have spent on gas. But I got a nice sweater and some jeans. But I wondered, like, are any towns looking at level 2 chargers as a draw? Just let people charge for free and, I don't know, get the businesses around or community development to pay for that, because free charging is appealing, and if you got somebody for 2 or 3 hours in your town, they're going to spend some money.
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure who I was talking to a week or so ago about free charging, and free charging can be problematic in that if you have a resident who rents a home nearby and parks and stays all night and charges up, the free charging can be abused. I like the idea, actually, and I wish we could maybe convince our town. Maybe if we do take it over, we can convince our town to do that. We have some nice restaurants, Burdick's Chocolates, by the way. And maybe we could get some of them to participate in helping that work.
So Peterborough also has some municipal level 2 chargers, and it's accessible to our downtown, and so people like to go and go shopping. We originally pitched it as it working better if it was free, and it was a firestorm. So we pitched it at a select board meeting and got so much pushback about subsidizing wealthy EV owners. And it just was like, we just couldn't do it. It just was politically unfeasible. So I hope that it can work in Walpole.
Any other questions?
Sarah, could I add something to
sorry,
this?
Zeke, go ahead.
And I'm going to speak from this side because it's more as if I was in the audience asking about EVs and chargers, because we are looking also at adding EV chargers. And the first thing that I don't know if anybody else was surprised, but $30,000 to install 4 level 2 chargers charging at 5 kilowatts is bonkers. Like, it costs $500 to get a 12 kilowatt charger off the street, like a Tesla one, the nicest one. But beyond the point, we also had free chargers in one of our local businesses, and literally 2 weeks ago they replaced them with paid chargers because there was an F-150 customer that kept coming and charging overnight. But what they did was actually really interesting. They got these chargers, charge point chargers, so the regular ones, and they're a business. So the idea is to attract EV owners. But the first 2 hours are free. And then, because you've already put your credit card, it charges you $5 an hour for every hour you stay beyond that, sort of to encourage you to leave. And of course, this is a real charger that would have licensing fees and all that as well. So maybe it costs $50,000 to install. I don't know. But I would be surprised if Blink didn't offer this anyways. So these online managed EV chargers tend to have this capability. It's not very hard to set up.
It's a good idea.
All right. Any other questions for our panel? Yeah.
I'm curious if any of the towns that have installed public EV chargers have noticed an uptick in EV ownership in the town, in particular among residents who are unable to charge at home, like a garage orphans, they're sometimes called.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think most of the people feel like it's going to be people from away that are going to use these more often than the people that live in town, because most of us are going to have level 2 chargers in our garage.
one thing to think about is when you're getting an EV, you don't always have the charger set up. And so I have a lot of people I know when they first get an EV, they get really familiar with their library or whatever's in town that has charging, and then they'll have that starting. So maybe for a while they're using it more often, but you're really making it possible to buy an EV, because if you don't have a backup plan until your charger gets installed, it's rough.
Sit over there, please.
I agree. I agree about level 2 chargers and finding a level 2 charger while you're getting your level 2 charger set up. Level 1 charging is pretty good as well. People sometimes forget you can plug into a regular 110 volt outlet with certain cars and get 15-20% overnight, which is probably a lot for most people anyways. So we tend to encourage people to look into that first if they're worried about home charging. It's not that difficult, or just a lot of people don't realize that they have level 2 charging at home with a large 240 volt outlet, right? Your dryer, your oven, like of course running a 240 volt extension cord from your oven to the garage, not a good idea, but sometimes, you know, a dryer in the garage, or you have an outlet, or you install an outlet, it costs $50-$60 to install a 240 volt outlet if you're near the panel. So that's another thing to think about.
Yes, in New Hampshire, you can do your own electrical work, yes. And this is another example of where the coaching concept, I think, really makes sense. These are the kinds of conversations that neighbor to neighbor can help solve. And to your point, I don't think we've gotten there in the adoption curve in the towns that I'm working with right now, but very much looking ahead, that is a question. Any other questions? Okay. You can chime in again. I'm going to move us along and ask about your familiarity with elective pay. So, put up your hand, and if you know nothing, give me a fist. If you know everything there is to know about this, give me a 5, and then give me some number of fingers in the middle. So, where are you at with elective pay? You're more than a 1. Okay, I'm getting a lot of 1 to 3s. Great. Let me give you a sense of what this is. So, the Inflation Reduction Act, which you've probably heard of, it is shorthand for a lot of money that came from the feds and is going into clean energy, among other things. This included a provision where public and tax-exempt entities, which in this context, municipalities are what I'm talking about, in schools, can get clean energy tax credits. And that's a really big deal for the kinds of projects that my team works with very commonly, like solar on the town hall in Kensington, or solar on the landfill, or electric vehicle procurement, or electric vehicle charging, or battery storage. These things can get tax credits now. It used to be, if any of you have been working in your town for a long time, that if you wanted to put solar on the roof of your library, you would probably do a power purchase agreement with some private company, because they could get the tax credit, and they would sort of pass through the value of that to you. With this, as of the 1st of 2023, projects that were plugged in from that point forward can access tax credits. So that's the skinny. You should be aware of this, because this program is supposed to run through 2030 and a little bit beyond. And that means that if you are going to do any project in your town that relates to clean energy, you're going to go after these funds. They are not capped. There is no limit on how many times you can go after them. It's not competitive. It's just there. So if you didn't know about it, now you know about it. We've got a really good guide that I'm going to show you so you can kind of see. And then come talk to my team if you're curious about how this might apply to what you're doing. This is a page on our website. Our website is admittedly in process of being more helpful to folks like you. You can always call me or someone on my team if you're curious if we have a resource or an example to share. We probably do. But we do have this little page on our website that has some resources, including a guide to this elective pay that we update relatively frequently. We started getting questions about elective pay back in January of last year, when folks who had installed systems in 2023 realized that they could get money back for those systems and didn't know how to go about it. So we started collecting sort of the best resources and the best advice on how to go about this, as well as tracking communities that are in the process so that we can share their lessons and their successes as you all try to access this money as well. So what you'll find when you go here, when you do, There is a very helpful resource that I am not going to show you now because we're running a little low on time. But if you go into this doc, there is an organization called Lawyers for Good Government. And if you take away nothing else from this, it is that this money exists and that Lawyers for Good Government exists. This is a network of lawyers who provide pro bono services to municipalities and other tax-exempt entities. And you can sign up for one-on-one support from them, and they have some really, really valuable resources, annotated tax forms, and very helpful step-by-step PDFs and presentations about how to do the pre-filing registration and the filing registration and how to access folks who can help you with the filing. So that exists. There's a whole lot more information about exactly what the steps are, but if you have a project that interconnected or will be interconnecting, make sure that you don't get too far without looking at this. If you're in the process of developing a project, make sure your developer knows that you're going after elective pay and knows what they should be getting to you so that you will have the paperwork in hand to file, the year from now when you have to be doing your filing, because we have towns right now that are having to go back and dig things up because they didn't know what they didn't know when they were doing the project, and now they're having to sort of get the paperwork together. But you can be more proactive now that you know this exists. I'm going to leave it there. But does anyone in the room have any specific questions? Our goal was mainly just to get it on your radar and say, come talk to us. Yes?
So has anybody actually created an example of the filled out form?
Yeah, there's a couple of different forms. There is a pre-filing registration that is what a lot of the towns have done. I don't know if there is an example of one, although we could probably develop one if that would be helpful. There is a really good, screenshot with an explanation of what to do. There's some very good hold your hand guidance for that. And then for the actual tax filing, there are some good annotated forms from Lawyers for Good Government that show you exactly what field to put where, which, as you know, tax forms are a bear. They do a good job of showing you what to put where. Yeah.
Does Lawyers for Good Government also work with individuals, or is it just on a municipal level?
Well, an individual, this is about accessing direct pay. An individual,
right?
That's a whole other thing. They were already eligible for tax credits, so no, they don't help with that.
I was just thinking about having forms for the tax credits that individuals can also access, and seeing that as being something that could be helpful as part of the coaching program.
Does Rewiring America do any of that?
Not that I know of, but
there's a lot on that website. The Rewiring America?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
really?
Yes, there is, yeah. But I don't think it's directed at individuals. But this is something I think the collective group of us should try to drum up. Because you're right. I think that there's a lot of people who do not know how to access the individual tax credits for this stuff, myself included. It's complicated. Any other questions or comments about direct pay? Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's not an ignorant question at all. How does a tax credit help if you're not paying tax? Thank you. I skimmed right over this. The nickname is direct pay because the IRS cuts you a check. It is not, if you have tax liability and you apply for a tax credit, it is just counted against the balance of your tax liability. And if you don't have tax liability, for example, we deal with a lot of farms in my work. I mentioned we have a circuit rider program that helps municipalities. I also have 2 staff focused on small businesses and farms. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of our small businesses and farms don't have a lot of tax liability, and it's really hard to get them the tax credits. They can't take advantage of this. If you are a non-tax paying entity, a tax-exempt entity, this is a totally different program where money from the IRS just means the IRS processes it, but it's IRA money that just goes to you as a check. It's not against any liability because you don't have any liability. Yeah. Any other questions about direct pay, about this panel, about the universe? Just kidding. Thank you for coming. I would say that if you are working in your local community, I almost said Vital Communities. I used to work at Vital Communities. Clean Energy New Hampshire had been running a local energy solutions work group for a number of years. That sort of fell by the wayside, but we are trying to bring it back. That means we are actively building a network of energy committees across the state. We're partnering with New Hampshire Network and some others to do that, including CPC&H, and I really want to get you on my list. We are having more webinars, more chances for folks to connect. We are developing resources. We want to pump those out to you, like this direct pay guide. So if you don't think you've been hearing from me, give me your email. I'll get you involved in that growing network. It is helpful if we can learn from each other. All right. Thank you.